My mom died when I was 3, and not long after that, I lost my brother in a custody battle. Me and my sister, we suffered physical and emotional abuse all of our years growing up. I dropped out of school early and got married just to escape my home environment. Shortly after being married, my son come along, and it probably wasn't a couple years, I met a gentleman that introduced me to a life of crime. It was an auto theft ring and insurance fraud. The money that I could make, it was easy, it was fast, and it was a lot of it. And that's how I valued my self-worth. The FBI shut us down in 1988, and when I went to prison, that's the first time I had realized how much my actions and my decisions had affected my family.
My dad was physically and verbally abusive. Dad went to prison when I was 14 years old. And between the ages of 14 and 17, I was completely alone. I turned to alcohol and drugs.
After getting out of prison, I went back to work and was well established. I was doing good, doing construction work. Then I was introduced to a gentleman that taught me how to cook meth. It got where I could make more in one evening than I could in a week.
I lived in a home where my father cooked drugs, but I wasn't able to talk about it, wasn't able to communicate with my friends about it, and I kind of had to just hold it in.
I would go out looking for someone to hurt. I was constantly getting in fights, just really wanting someone to see the pain, to feel the pain that I was feeling.
Got married at 18, and then I found myself doing the things that I didn't approve of. So then we started dabbling with drugs. You know, it was just something that she was exposed to growing up, as well as me. We're gonna do drugs, we're gonna argue, we're gonna party and see other people. That's what normal was.
I didn't know I was an addict then. I wasn't a functioning addict. I never ran out, so I didn't know I was hooked on the drug. But the addiction cost me my business, my home, my family, my friends. It cost me my health. And I can't get the years back that I lost.
I eventually got married. I brought a lot of the things that I had seen growing up into my marriage and into the relationships with my children. I was being verbally abusive. I was cheating on my wife, and I had become the very person that I despised. I was in bondage for years with alcohol addiction, sexual addiction. I watched it tear my life apart. I had no contact with my dad or my brother. At this point, all three of us are like, we're going through hell together, but individually. All of our marriages failed, all of our relationships are breaking. We're all dealing with some type of addiction. For me, I got desperate when my marriage was basically over and I lost my job. So I had nowhere to turn. I didn't have a place to live, I didn't have a job, and my wife was leaving me.
I got busted again in 2012 for numerous drug charges. I had a bond of $2,053,000. And I woke up the next morning in jail. I was broken. I was broken spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. My life was in shambles.
I'd be home alone, and I would get down on my knees in my bedroom, and I just began to cry out, Lord, you know, if you're there, we need you now. I need you now. I need you to show up. And he did. He showed up. A week or two after that, you know, my wife came to me. We began to talk it out. We began to work on it. We began the healing process. And God just began to work miracles in my life. We began to go to church together. We began to get involved in small groups. And through the relationships that we made in those small groups, our marriage was able to heal. And God just came in and just healed our hearts and took away the pain and took away the hurts and allowed us to fall in love again.
I called my brother and was like, you know, look, man, can you help me? And he said, yeah, I can. Moved in with him, and I started going to Highlands, dedicated my life to God, got involved in a life group, and that's when I experienced, you know, forgiveness, and I was able to forgive my dad for the things that had happened in my past, and then able to forgive myself for the choices that I had made along the road.
In 2009, Pastor Chris handed out lifesavers. And what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to give our lifesaver a name. And every time we look at that lifesaver, we're supposed to pray for that person. I named it for my dad. And every time I looked at this lifesaver, I would pray for him. And my prayer was that God would allow him to come to church. And I knew that would have been a miracle. And so for a year, I prayed for my dad. And God answered that prayer, not the way that I thought it would look like.
I had asked the judge when I went for a bond reduction, could I go to the foundry? I told him I'd already put an application in. He said, son, you're already on probation and you have a $2 million bond. There's no way we're gonna let you go to a rehab. It wasn't but a couple months. The judge called me back in and he lowered my bond from $2 million to $10,000 and gave me a chance to come to the foundry to get the help I needed.
And while that's happening, at the same time, I'm going through 21 days of prayer, and the Lord lays it on my heart to take this small group to the foundry. And so as it works out, we show up there. I pick up Dad from jail, and the next morning we go to the foundry. And as I'm dropping him off there, I was like, well, here's your luggage, here's your stuff, Oh, and by the way, I'll be leading a small group here. I want you in it.
Through this small group, at the end there's a retreat. And at this retreat, that's my first time to ever encountering God in the way I did. I felt his presence like never before. I got the healing on my heart from all the abuse, my drug addiction, all the hurt and pain that I've caused people.
I feel that God has delivered me from my past into this new creation of this new guy that has a purpose now.
God has healed all the hurt. He has restored my family. It's awesome what God can do if you will let him.
God delivered us from this tremendous stronghold of addiction. He delivered us from all this pain, and he taught us how to forgive. He taught us how to love, and he taught us his love. And he showed us that he is for us.